be putting me on. God say no, Abe say what? God say you can do what you want, Abe, but next time you see me coming, you better run. Well, Abe said, where you want this killing done? God said, on down Highway 61. Well, Georgia Sam, he had a bloody nose. Welfare department, they wouldn't give him no clothes.
All right. We can only take so much Bob Dylan early in the morning, right? But I felt like Highway 61 Revisited. By the way, if you're not even a Dylan fan a little bit, check out the album Highway 61 Revisited, because it's one of Dylan's best. And that, of course, the title track from it. Decided to play that today to start our show because I heard it last night when we ducked into a little pub right around the corner from our hotel here in Flint. Yes, same show, different location for you today, as we are in Flint for the Kitchener Rangers Flint Firebirds playoff game 3 tonight. And I thought, why not? I'm here, you're there. Let's have the usual conversation that we have between 9 and 1, and then we'll come back later from the Dort Federal Event Center for the game tonight between the Firebirds and the Rangers. That's going to be a 6:30 pregame show. My buddy and broadcast partner, Paul Fixter, will be with me for that. And it was Fixie that got us around the corner into a little pub called Churchill's last evening, where the band was playing some Dylan as they signed off the night. And let me tell you a little something. First of all, Churchill's pub, as in Winston Churchill. So we got to sit there, enjoy one another's company, an adult beverage or two, and read the quotes around the bar that said things like, you have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something in your life. And my favorite, the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Those quotes attributed to Winston Churchill at Churchill's pub here in Flint last night. I'm always a little bit cautious with those quotes that get attributed to historical figures because I've come to learn that they're not always entirely accurate, and in some cases were never actually said by the person that we're told they were said by. But I'm going to go with those from Churchill because he was one of the greatest orators our world has ever known. And the best argument against democracy being a 5-minute conversation with the average voter, I can get behind a sentiment like that. Good Tuesday morning. I hope you are doing well. I hope you have managed to get through the morning so far without being fooled by anything or anyone. I promise you what you are hearing is real. And if you're watching on Rogers TV Cable 20, cool. Hello. And again, greetings from Flint on this April the 1st. I got to think, though, and I'll give credit where it's due, because I'm calling shenanigans on Hans Roach, the Ward 3 councillor in Waterloo, who has allegedly announced his candidacy as an independent for the federal election. I don't think that's happening. If it is, Hans, and it's not an April Fool's joke, best of luck in the upcoming federal election. But methinks Councillor Roach in Waterloo, especially because he's announcing his candidacy as an independent. I think the media release he sent out was in jest because this is April the 1st. So just be careful what it is you're consuming today by way of information, because there are people out there looking to play the occasional trick on you. It is April the 1st, after all. And I think the rule still applies, right? If you make the play the prank or try to pull the joke after noon, you become the biggest fool of them all. I think that's the way it still goes. All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
We will start at number 1. And if you could vote today in the federal election, who would you vote for? The consumer carbon tax has been repealed, and you'll notice it at the gas pumps with prices down 17 cents per liter overnight. We're talking about it on the show this morning, just after the 9:30 news. Number 2, have you met our new WREN yet? The Waterloo Regional Health Network is now here after the province approved the merger of Grand River and St. Mary's hospitals. The new WREN is officially in place as of today. We'll be talking about that on the show this morning at 10:15. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the U.S. government has sent a 36-question survey to Canadian universities to determine whether their work aligns with the recently updated America First policy. The questionnaire aims to learn if U.S. funding is being used for research on diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender ideology, if the research recognizes only 2 sexes, or if it's involved with climate justice. Now, the University of Waterloo, of course, has an entire department dedicated to climate change research, but the school has not said how much of its funding comes from the U.S. government. Number 4, Waterloo MPP Catherine Fife and Kitchener Centre MPP Ashlyn Clancy are advocating to keep the supervised injection site open in Kitchener. Fife says the facility saves lives, and taking away such services without replacing them is dangerous. Now, while a court injunction allows the sites to remain open, Kitchener's will still have to close because it relies on provincial funding that ends today. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this Tuesday morning, a volunteer shortage is impacting the Wheels of Hope program for the Canadian Cancer Society in Cambridge. The program offers free rides to cancer patients so that they can get to their treatments. Pre-pandemic, Wheels of Hope had 39 volunteer drivers across the region. Today, that number is down to 29, about a 25% drop, and only 5 drivers are currently active in Cambridge. If you can help, you can visit volunteercancer.ca, sign up and be one of those Wheels of Hope drivers. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, if you were listening last week, you may have heard a call that we got during the Talkback Hour on Friday, and somebody was very concerned that the mayor of Kitchener was using city resources to do work on his private property. Now, I promised to look into this. That's what we do on the show. We look into these things. We have the answer, and it might not surprise you at all. I'll give you the answer coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Okay, let me take you back to Friday's show, if I could, because as you know, if you've listened to this show for more than a minute, you know that we are all about getting you the answers to the questions that you have, getting you some clarity on issues, and making sure you have the best and most accurate information. So when we got this call on Friday during the Talkback Hour, I was pretty reluctant to believe what I was hearing could be true, but in the interests of doing the right thing, we made sure we went out, asked the questions of the appropriate people, and got to the bottom of the story. So if you missed it on Friday, here is a call we got on the Talkback Hour from Susan.
I have something that, let's use one of your words, flummoxed me. My husband came home yesterday. We live on the same street as the mayor of Kitchener. And he came home, he said, the city is doing his trees. And I said, what? He said, the truck is in his yard, but the bucket truck is in the cemetery yard, and they are trimming the trees in his backyard. And he said there was a big branch over the neighbor's new garage. He said they were taking that down. He said none of these were in any way related to city property. So he said, what the heck is going on? Everyone else on that street pays for private tree companies to come in and do that. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, we waste money on bike lanes, and now our taxpayers paying for the mayor to have his property trees trimmed.
Knowing the mayor the way that we do, I doubt that he is using city resources to have work done on his personal property. But we can find out.
If someone can call you and say, well, here's what happened, I'd love to hear that.
All right,
Because I'm
Susan.
sure I'm not the only one on the street thinking that. Let's ask. Let's get the answer.
Let's ask. Let's get the answers, Susan said. And so I did just that. I asked and got the answers. What I'm curious about in all of this is if you live on the same street as the mayor, since that makes him your neighbor, maybe you could just ask the neighbor, the mayor himself, instead of calling a program like ours and perhaps attempting to stir a pot or two. As I said, you heard right there, knowing the mayor, as we all do. I mean, Barry Verbanovic, the mayor of Kitchener, was a city councillor for many years before becoming the mayor. He's very well known. He's very accessible in the community. It doesn't sound like the sort of thing he would do. But I'm not here to carry the mayor's water. So I did, as Susan suggested, and I asked the questions. And the short answer to this is no, absolutely not. Is the mayor using city resources to have trees removed on his personal property? In fact, one of the things that you just heard from Susan that she said on the show last week is entirely inaccurate. The trees being taken care of by the city are not on the mayor's private property or even the private property of the mayor's neighbors. They are actually on the property of the cemetery that's in behind their homes. You also heard Susan allude to that cemetery. So the work is being done in the cemetery because the trees do, in some cases, overhang the properties into the backyards of the mayor, and in particular, in this case, his neighbor, who does have that new garage that Susan alluded to. And there is a branch hanging, a big one, from the tree in the cemetery over onto that property. And because the tree is in the shape that it's in, and that branch may someday fall and do damage to that brand new garage or shed, the city doesn't want to be on the hook for that. It's doing some proactive work here. Isn't that exactly the sort of thing you would like to see the city do? I've learned even more about this, a couple of other things. This happened, this same work was done in the cemetery on trees that were hanging over backyards on the same street where the mayor lived at his neighbors' places, but nobody had anything to say then. It just so happens that now, because the work appears to be happening at the mayor's house or in behind the mayor's house, some folks like Susan have got their dander up and they're wondering if something untoward is going on here. This is where it gets even more interesting to me. Again, a year ago, this work is being done at neighbors' places on the same street. Nobody has any question about it. Now that it seems to be happening at the mayor's place, okay. Here's the best part of it, as far as I'm concerned. The work may appear to be happening at the mayor's place because the equipment, the chipper truck, is in the mayor's driveway. And that's so when they're doing the work in behind and they take those branches down, it's easier to access that chipper out front. The mayor said, yes, you can park that in my driveway as a gesture to his neighbor who just had his driveway resurfaced. So the driveway that's just been redone, why put the heavy equipment in there and perhaps mark up this nicely resurfaced driveway? The mayor's like, no, I'm a good neighbor. You can put the chipper truck in my driveway and get your work done that way. So the mayor was just being a good neighbor in all of this. But to be clear, the trees that are being worked on are trees that are on city property because the cemetery, of course, is city property. So, I mean, maybe the next time Susan wants to stir the pot, she can pick a less connected radio program to do that because she wanted the answers. And I said on Friday, I don't think this sounds like something the mayor of Kitchener would do. He's far too politically savvy to get engaged in something like that. And furthermore, as you can learn from the story, he's just an all-around good guy and good neighbor. So maybe next time, Susan, try a different, less connected radio show that won't be able to find the answers to the questions that sadly find absolutely nothing wrong with this. Everything is above board on the street where the mayor lives, contrary to what you might have heard on the show on Friday. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, just in keeping with the theme of the morning so far, this is the show that you can come to that is connected to your community, that gets you the answers. So we know, for example, already, and we kind of had a pretty good idea on Friday, that the mayor of Kitchener is not using company or city resources to take care of trees on his own property. And I also received a media release just before 9 today, and I thought that somebody was pulling my leg a little bit, but they are not. At least straight from the horse's mouth, Hans Roach, Ward 3 councillor in Waterloo, has announced his candidacy for the role of member of federal parliament. He is running as an independent in this federal election. I thought for sure it's April the 1st. This has got to be one of those little April Fool's pranks, but no. And Councillor Roach says in his media release, long speculated as a potential conservative candidate, he's clarifying his stance to say, and I'll quote, "I'm not red, I'm not blue, I'm here for the people of Waterloo." I mean, the rhyming makes me want to think it's a prank, but straight from Hans Roach himself, this is not an April Fool's joke. He is running as MP under an independent banner in Waterloo. So there you have it. And that is no easy task, by the way. The party system has its warts. We are all very well aware of that. But running as an independent is no small task. There's already another independent candidate in Waterloo, Val Meekman, who had hoped to get the Conservative nomination, was overlooked at the last moment when a new candidate was parachuted in. So now we have two independents running as MP, or for the role of MP in Waterloo, as Waterloo councillor Hans Roach joins that race. I hope he's going to resign his city council seat and then run for it again in a by-election, because I think that's the way these things should happen. All right, let's get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And following that, gas prices are down how far and why? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I asked you during the Farwell Show 5 today if you could cast your ballot in the federal election today, for whom would you cast that ballot? Because it is consumer carbon tax free day now, I guess, as Mark Carney promised to remove the consumer carbon tax. In fairness, let's just be clear about this. That was the entire focus, quite frankly, of Pierre Poilievre's efforts to become our next prime minister when it was still Justin Trudeau leading the Liberal Party. Pierre Poilievre and his campaign pledge to axe the tax even before there was a campaign. So Pierre Poilievre was going to do the same thing, and he has said he would carry it even further into industry as well. The bottom line is this: the consumer carbon tax is no longer, and I guess as a result, gas prices today are down nearly 20 cents per liter. So if you could cast your ballot today, would that 20-cent break at the pumps be something that makes you check one box or another? How do you feel about these prices coming down as they have? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I'm thinking about a couple of things here insofar as the impact that these prices have on us. Obviously, it's a great thing. You heard with Carl Hansky, our reporter, who's out talking to people as they fill up their cars today. You're looking at a $10 savings, which is not insignificant on a 50-liter fill up, right? I've always found that to be one of the most interesting things about gas prices, how closely we pay attention to them, how we react when those prices fluctuate, which we know they do. If a price is down, 5, 6, 7 cents a liter, and you think about your typical vehicle, 50 liters or so, we have seen lineups at gas stations for people to get that 5 or 6 or 7 cent per liter lower price before it goes up overnight or something, right? And I'm thinking, you're saving $2.50 to $3.50 here. I mean, is this what we're really all about? I guess it is the price of a cup of coffee, so that's something. But when you're getting up to $10 a pop here, okay. I mean, that's the price of a Starbucks coffee or something. I've always just found it really interesting that we get really excited. Oh, the price is going up 6 cents tonight. We better fill up to save that $3. But money saved is money saved. And I know that gas prices are something that have long been a pain in our derriere, quite frankly. But I'm thinking on two things right now. One is a call we got on the show last week from Lisa, who was very carefully watching the impact that the carbon tax was having on her home energy bill. And I confess to being one of those people who's really terrible at this. The bill is what the bill is. I do monitor it from month to month to make sure that I'm not going, way out of whack with my budget, for example. But I'm not looking at the detailed breakdown of how much the carbon tax, for example, had been impacting my home heating. I've complained about this before. When I did a renovation some time back, I switched to natural gas because at the time, this was the cleanest, most efficient, cost-effective source for me to start using. And of course, now you get to this point where the carbon tax is a thing, and all of a sudden, the conversion to natural gas isn't what it was chalked up to be a decade or so ago, right? Anyway, Lisa had a very detailed breakdown of how much the carbon tax was costing her as a homeowner slash consumer, and how she wasn't sure how any change to it or when it was lifted are the bills dramatically going to be dropping. That's, again, something on home heating as opposed to the price at the pumps, which we're seeing today is down around 17 cents from where it was yesterday. Something else that struck me when it broke yesterday that the prices would be coming down so much was an experience that a buddy of mine had. And he said, you should do a show about this because I think we're being conditioned to get ready for a higher price. So he had gone to fill up. And from the time he started filling up to the time he was finished filling up, the price had gone up somewhere around 12 cents. It was definitely into the double digits. So he's filling up at $1.40, whatever. And then as he was putting the pump back, the price had jumped to $1.50, whatever. And he said he's convinced that we are being conditioned to deal with a higher price so that when the carbon tax is removed, the oil companies are just going to be able to pocket the profit there and make even more from what we spend at the pumps. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but that speaks to, again, our ongoing frustration with gas prices, what we pay at the pumps. And I'm not sure any of us believes that we are necessarily getting value here or not being gouged in some way by the big oil companies. Is the big difference today the removal of the carbon tax? How are you feeling about what you're seeing at the pumps? We will continue the conversation with Dan McTagg, who's the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy, right after this quick timeout. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A dramatic drop in the price at the pumps, and it's no April Fool's joke. The consumer carbon tax lifted. That no longer has to be collected, right? So that's why we're down almost 20 cents per liter at pumps across Ontario. Dan McTagg is the president for of Canadians for Affordable Energy, joins the program. Dan, as always, good to have your time. Good morning.
Great to be here, and it is a very good morning. It's no April Fool's joke, thankfully, Mike.
Well, it really does seem astounding to many. Like, oftentimes we talk about 5, 6, 7 cent decreases, but when we're getting into double digits like this, these are going to add up to some pretty significant savings for people.
They are, and as I've lamented for some time, perhaps they shouldn't have been there in the first place. There's other ways of skinning this cat, pardon the expression, but I don't want to get people upset with me. The reality is that for the past 6 or 7 years, I've probably lost a lot of friends in saying this is not a very bright way to proceed. It's inflationary. It's not having the effect that people want. It's not reducing emissions. There has to be a better way of approaching this rather than, hitting people over the head with a ball peen hammer, which of course this does every time they want to fill up. The fact that it's 25 cents a liter for diesel, 20 cents a liter for gasoline, we're still going to get our natural gas bills. Some of us still our propane bills, depending on the fuel that we have. This has really set off an inflationary spiral, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time. Perhaps things will turn around. This is very temporary, though. Unfortunately, I think this is going to come right back to haunt us right after the federal election.
What makes you say that?
Well, they said it's a pause. They haven't got rid of the federal enabling legislation. I've been a politician, a Liberal MP for 18 years. I know how legislation works. And I know that when you make a little stroke of a pen or with a Sharpie, you say it's off for a couple of weeks. That's great. But they are saying it's going to be an industrial carbon tax, which basically means the same thing, save and except you won't get the rebates. You're going to wind up paying almost, if not just as much. And of course, the intensity, that is the tonnage, or what we're paying, 17.61 going to 37.43 cents a liter plus HST, GST is still on the books. That formula, that schedule is still in place every April 1st. Now, the fact there won't be a carbon tax, you won't see it on your receipt, but you will see it in terms of manufacturing, refiners, and others simply passing it on, as they do currently, by the way, Mike, with a second carbon tax no one wants to talk about, but I've been on since 2021, and that's about 6 or 7 cents a liter buried into the price of $1.35, $1.36 that you're paying this morning.
What is that second carbon tax you're referring to?
Yes, Mike, it's called Clean Fuel Standard or Clean Fuel Regulation. In 2020, they proposed to put that on. That would mean refiners have to reduce their emissions by 30% between now and then. To do that, they've had to increase ethanol. So you've gone from 5 to 15% ethanol. Now that that's over, they've had to buy carbon credits. That's the market that's available to people that come out. They say, "Hey, listen, I leave my field fallow in the middle of Ontario. I qualify for a credit. You give them $100,000, and that way you can offset." And buy, if you will, the fact that there are no technologies out there that will reduce emissions, so you buy the credit instead, and that's how the system works. Unfortunately, it obviates, as in the case of the consumer carbon tax and the second carbon tax, the Clean Fuel Standard, they both avoid the fact that the technologies simply aren't there to see these reductions. So what's happening is they're hitting consumers over the head. And the real effect is to drive up inflation and drive up the cost of everything, including, as my good friend Sylvain Charlevoix, the food professor, has done 2 peer-reviewed economic studies that said, yes, carbon taxes, clean fuel standard, other net zero policies are in fact leading to higher costs for everything, including food.
Dan, we talked to people out filling up their vehicles this morning, and obviously they're almost ecstatic with the considerably lower price at the pumps. But having this conversation now, I wonder if this is in some ways a false win for consumers, drivers today.
Mike, unfortunately, and I can say this with 18 years as a member of Parliament, years in the automotive sector, years in the energy sector, this is a head fake. And it's good to see we're going to get $10-15 off a week on our fuel bills. But it's coming back. Should the Liberals, NDP, Green bloc form a majority or a government after the next election, I fully expect they're going to do this again. In 2019, they promised they would never let the carbon tax go above 17 cents a liter. Instead, they put it up to what I said earlier, 37, 38 cents a liter, which is what it was going to be by April 1st, 2030. So I have no reason to believe that anything is going to change unless, of course, there is a different government that says we are going to completely annihilate the carbon taxes, the first and the second one. Until that happens, I expect that you're going to see these prices rise. And yes, you're going to get grumpy at the oil companies, and I'm grumpy with them as well. They hate my guts because I predict gas prices. I've been doing it for 30 years. I pioneered the stuff here in Canada. But at the end of the day, it's easy for the Liberals to say, well, we'll make an industrial carbon tax. That way people blame refiners and manufacturers. Business will not absorb this cost. They'll simply pass on to consumers. You're going to pay for it one way or another. So be very careful in your choices on April the 28th.
Is there a better way of doing this, Dan? Canadians for Affordable Energy. How do we make this more affordable?
Well, I think we look at the technologies. Prior to my being a member of parliament and prior to do my work in energy, I worked for a tiny little company. You'll notice Toyota Lexus. I was public relations for the company. They've improved the quality, they've improved the performance, the emissions, what comes out of your tailpipe, as have many other companies. What used to be an 8-cylinder vehicle is now a 3-cylinder vehicle with a lot better mileage, better emissions, and certainly when it comes to pollutants and real environmental concerns, it's certainly been remarkable. And I'm not just talking about the invention in 1974 of the catalytic converter or before that. There are technologies that are evolving slowly but surely, and it doesn't necessarily mean EVs. It can mean all sorts of other things. Hydrogen is very expensive, unlikely to be used anytime soon. I suspect that what the government ought to be doing is working with our best practices here in Canada and around the world to say, what are the best technologies leading us to a better, cleaner future with our vehicles and with our emissions, as opposed to clubbing people over the head with higher prices just to force them to stop driving or stop heating. And I think that's not the way to go about it. There are other ways of incentivizing these technologies. I know we did that in our time as members of parliament, but I suspect the better approach is the carrot, not the stick.
Dan, as always, great to get your perspective on the show. Thanks for carving out time for us on a very busy day, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be here. Thanks.
Dan McTagg, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy, joining us here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I expect that you're going to see these prices rise, but at the end of the day, it's easy for the Liberals to say, well, we'll make an industrial carbon tax. That way people blame refiners and manufacturers. Business will not absorb this cost. They'll simply pass it on to consumers. You're going to pay for it one way or another. So be very careful in your choices on April the 28th.
Ah, yes, April the 28th. That, of course, is Election Day. And Dan McTagg, who is the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy and a former Liberal MP, I might add, is reminding us to be very careful when we make that choice on Election Day, because what we are seeing today when it comes to the price at the pumps is really just a bit of a mirage, isn't it? A head fake, as Dan calls it. So much of this, I mean, just when we think about Dan's role in all of this as a spokesperson who's and very outspoken spokesperson, if you will, when it comes to the cost of energy, the taxes on fuel, the impact of the carbon tax, etc. Remember that Dan McTagg was a Liberal MP decades ago. And I think we all acknowledge that today's Liberal is different than a 20-year ago Liberal. And maybe the Liberal Party under Mark Carney wants to revert a little bit more to the Liberal Party that it was under Jean Chrétien. I suppose that remains to be seen. But Dan's role in all of this, and being a key figure, he also acknowledged in that conversation that he pioneered the gas price monitoring, right? He was, even while an MP, the person that you would seek out to get the next day's gasoline prices. Anyway, it goes on from there. And Dan joins our show this morning to talk about this head fake, as he calls it. And I'm thinking about this in another context as well. Oftentimes, when people complain about taxes in Canada, we are reminded that, versus other G7 nations, the overall tax rate is actually quite reasonable on a relative basis when compared to others, etc. And that's all well and good until I think you start getting into more of these, what I might call hidden taxes, what we pay for fuel, as one example. Today is the day, April the 1st, that the escalating tax on alcohol once again takes effect. This happens year over year over year. And just think about all of the taxes that are built into the cost of producing and then selling alcohol in Ontario, in Canada, not clear across Canada, because we know places where it's certainly less expensive to buy than Ontario. But I was telling you at the beginning of the show today, being here working on location from Flint, we went around the corner to a pub. Churchill's Pub is where we spent some time last night after dinner. And you could get a 16-ounce draft from the bar for $4.50. I don't care what kind of exchange rate you're taking into account here. $4.50 for a 16-ounce draft of beer is dramatically less expensive than it is back home because, of course, all of the taxes that are embedded in those prices. And I know a friend of mine who operates a small craft brewery back home in the region was part of a panel discussion just yesterday or the day prior about the impact of the escalator tax coming back into play or escalating again as of April the 1st and what it means to small producers of alcohol. Talk to Murphy's Law in Elmira, the distillery that makes some great spirits, and find out the impact that taxes have had. We've had them on the show to talk about it before. So big picture, tax rates, income tax, et cetera, what we get, the value for what we spend on taxes is one thing. But when you start drilling down into the cost we pay to fill up our vehicles, to heat our homes, to enjoy a beverage or two, I think that's where people start getting more and more frustrated with the tax system and the structure as it is today in Canada. All right, let's get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then in Canada, we are marking 40 years of Refugee Rights Day. The conversation is coming up here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Whoops, Shelley, are you with us? Good morning.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I got you now, Shelley. Thank you. Good to hear from you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How about yourself?
Doing great. The sun is shining, and it's just an overall beautiful day. It's and the start of an amazing month, actually. Not just Refugee Rights Day, but April is also the month when our Charter of Rights was signed, and of course, at the end of this month, as we've all been talking, is the election, where that being Canadian is probably the biggest thing on the radar screen right now. So all of this wraps up together quite nicely for me.
It certainly does, and I can understand why. That really gives us some perspective about the importance of not just the next 28 days leading up to the election, but the entire month as we mark 40 years since Refugee Rights Day was first celebrated in this country. Can you take us back to that landmark decision 40 years ago that brought us to this point, Shelley?
Yes. 40 years ago, there were several refugee claimants who had their claim denied. And at that point, the way the process worked was a claim was made on paper and then decided by people behind closed doors whether that claim was valid or not. There was no opportunity to be asked questions or to appeal that decision. And so that appeal ended up going to the courts and all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. And 6 justices agreed that people on the soil of Canada, regardless of their immigration status, had the right under Section 7 of the Charter to have an oral hearing or a due process that allowed some challenge of decisions and some back and forth on that decision rather than it just all being on paper.
I wonder, Shelley, given the political climate of the day, if it feels as though over the last 40 years we've indeed made progress, or perhaps we're beginning to regress in this regard.
I think Canada has always been about due process and the rule of law. And so I'm not sure that the concern is around that. I think it's more around, is that law being taken advantage of? And I would say no. With, at Compass Refugee Center, 90% of the people that we work with have their claims approved through this process of getting an oral hearing and being examined and being scrutinized and their claims being thoroughly investigated. So I think what we have is a lot of rhetoric and a lot of concern around other social issues that are being applied to a broad umbrella of people who have no way of speaking to that. And so the climate that we are in today is really one of an opportunity to say, no, we believe in the rights of people to speak for themselves and to speak to the concerns that we might have about them, and not just have that decided without some kind of back and forth. And so I think we have an opportunity here to stand up and be the Canadians that we are, and stand in that constitutional right of our charter to be heard before we are judged.
How does the Compass Refugee Center help refugees and to ensure that 90% success rate that you just mentioned, Shelley?
When people come and to make a refugee claim, they have no idea how complex the process has become. And I think, again, this is something that Canadians can take a lot of comfort in. It is a very complicated, thorough process with lots of documents to complete in either English or French. And so with many people coming not having those languages as their first language, one of the first barriers is even being able to understand the documents. So we help them complete documents. We help them get access to lawyers who are involved in immigration law and work with refugee claims in particular. And we help them gather their evidence and get it translated. So we do everything that they would otherwise have to do completely on their own, so that when they meet with their lawyers, they have everything in order that that lawyer needs to represent them in accordance with the laws that we have today.
How does the Compass Refugee Center mark the 40th anniversary of Refugee Rights Day on Friday?
So this Friday, we are having an open house and inviting people to come to learn more about the work of Compass, but also the broader work of what it means to make a refugee claim in Canada, and why it's important that we continue to make that possible for people who truly need protection.
It is important work, and we're certainly appreciative of folks like you and the rest of the team that continue to do it in our community. Shelley, thank you very much for joining the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Shelley Campanola is the executive director at the Compass Refugee Center. This Friday, the 4th of April, marks the 40th anniversary of Refugee Rights Day here in Canada. And as you can hear in that conversation with Shelley, gives us a better understanding as to why it's so important and the landmark decision that brought us to this point 40 years ago. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is the REN, the Waterloo Regional Health Network, is here. St. Mary's and Grand River hospitals, in name anyway, are no longer. We'll talk about this new era of healthcare in our community coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, as you no doubt heard during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, we have entered a new era of healthcare in this community. Grand River Hospital and St. Mary's General Hospital have had their merger approved by the province's Ministry of Health, and we are now, or they now, come together as the Waterloo Regional Health Network, or REN, effective today. Let's learn more about it as we're joined by the co-chairs of this new Waterloo Regional Health Network, Tim Rollins and Sandra Hanmer. Sandra, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. Long time no talk.
I know, very short. Thanks for having us back.
It's an absolute pleasure. And Tim, it's nice to have you here as well. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'll start with you, Tim, if I could. The Waterloo Regional Health Network, REN, how does that land with you? How does that feel this morning?
It's a bittersweet day. It's the start of something brand new, fresh, foundational for the future of healthcare and innovation in our community. But it's also bittersweet because we say goodbye to both St. Mary's and Grand River that have been institutions in our community for combined, I think, over 240 years. So it's a bittersweet day. But I can tell you the name Ren and just recognizing the significant amount of effort and work our teams have put in, particularly over the past 12 months, it's really good to be here on day one. Really good.
Sandra, can you walk us through that work, what the last year has been like getting us to this point today that the Ren now becomes the new era of healthcare?
Mike, it's been an amazing journey as we've gone through from building on the collaborative work that our two organizations had done in the past. Our medical staff have been combined for years. So it's been looking at the processes and policies and practices and how do we want to be functioning going forward so that residents in our community will still enjoy the high quality, compassionate care that they have come to appreciate and receive from our two organizations. It's been a lot of heavy lifting for our staff at looking at how do we want to be working together, what practices do we need to be putting in place, where are we going to locate, as you know, the new site that will be part of our Waterloo Regional Health Network going forward. And we will always be 3 campuses. So what do those 3 campuses look like? So the designing and the input, collaboration, lots of great work has gone into getting us where we are today for day one. There's still lots more to do. We feel very fortunate to be able to be doing it together.
Tim, what does this mean for patients? What are they going to experience as we begin this new era?
Patients today, when they walk into any one of the 3 sites, will experience the same service and delivery as they have in the past. There will be no change to our focus on patient-centric service delivery at all the sites today. Over time, as our teams integrate more, as they work together, as they develop consistent processes, patients might see subtle changes. But the reality is for day one, it's going to be the same focus on what's in the best interest of that patient from their healthcare delivery and journey perspective.
So these 3 sites are now Ren at Midtown, which is the former Grand River KW campus, Ren at Queens Boulevard, formerly St. Mary's, and Ren at Chicopee, which would be formerly now the Grand River Freeport campus. Sandra, how do these 3 sites move forward and take us towards that new facility that we're looking at in Waterloo on the campus of the university?
Well, we will continue to provide the care that we have been providing there. It now gives the opportunity to look at innovative and new ways for us to be working together, to be doing things, and attracting new programs and services to our community, as well as individuals and highly skilled talent coming into our area. So we're excited about all of that. The 3 campuses will continue to be. We will continue to have Ren at Chicopee, Ren at Midtown, and then when the new building is open, it will be Ren at, and the name hasn't been decided for that last campus, but we will still always have the 3 campuses as part of the network.
Tim, we know that just announced this morning, Ron Gagnon has been appointed the inaugural president and CEO of this newly formed network. What does Ron bring by way of experience to this role?
We're really honored and proud that Ron, agreed to take on the role. And Ron has been an instrumental healthcare partner in our community with Grand River, the partnership with St. Mary's, with our broader healthcare partners since 2018. And, as we've embarked on this journey of healthcare infrastructure renewal, which ultimately led to both boards sitting back and going, why aren't we moving together? And the community saying, why aren't you moving together? Ron's been an instrumental foundational plank and leader in that journey. And there's lots more work to be done, Mike. Today's day one, lots more work to be done. And there's no better individual that brings the the historic perspective that brings the relationships with the Ministry of Health, that brings the relationships with our local partners, both healthcare, innovation partners, university college partners, than Ron. And so we thought it was very critical for our organization, for our people, that from day one we have some stability, and Ron brings that stability to our organization, and we couldn't be more happy to have him.
Sandra, not lost on me that we're talking about the Waterloo Regional Health Network here, and part of Waterloo Region is, of course, the city of Cambridge. How does Cambridge Memorial Hospital fit into all of this, if at all, because they don't get mentioned?
They do in a lot of ways, and they have been part of our planning all the way along. As we developed our Building the Future of Care Together, our BFCT committee, representation from Cambridge Memorial was first and foremost at the table, and will continue to be as we go forward. As we're looking at our functional program, like what's going to happen at each of the areas, we can't do that planning without Cambridge being at the table. So they very much will be at the table. Actually, Mike, before I hopped on this call, I was speaking with Patrick Gaskin, who's the president and CEO, as you know, at Cambridge Memorial Hospital. And he's very excited about the direction that we're going to be able to go working together.
Tim, just before I let you go, with Ron at the helm now, and you talked about the expertise that he brings, and I know his name is familiar to those in the community. We're now, I guess, all systems go looking to 2034 and the opening of that new hospital in Waterloo. How does this network help keep us on that path?
It's going to keep us focused. It's going to keep us directed, and it's going to enable us to bring, and Sandra mentioned this, to bring in talent to this region that we might not have been able to bring in before, or talent that maybe we were inadvertently competing against each other for. So ultimately, this, again, was step one in the foundational elements of how we transform healthcare delivery and our infrastructure in this community, which is so needed and so deserved. So this is day one, but we've now got some of the foundational elements in play. The team's got a lot of work to do over the next couple of years to move us forward, to continue striving for improvement, and to continue to ensure that we're on the top of the ministry list when it comes to that infrastructure build.
It is a big day and an exciting one, to be sure. Tim, Sandra, thank you both for making time for the show. It's good to talk to you this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Tim Rollins and Sandra Hanmer, co-chairs of the Waterloo Regional Health Network. We call it the REN, and it is officially in place as of today. The future of healthcare in our community, I guess we could say, is officially underway. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. And we do continue today from a different location. Same show, different studio for me. My hotel in Flint. Paul Fixter and I are here to bring you Kitchener Rangers playoff action tonight. Your Harris Law pregame show will get underway at 6:30. Game 3, Rangers Firebirds. And you'll have all of the action and all of the information right here on 570 News Radio. As we continue our show, before 11, you're going to meet one of the successful participants from a local track and field club who had a podium finish at an event recently in the States. And right after this update from the 570 News Center, how to make EV charging more accessible in our region. That conversation coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, the first Tuesday of every month means a couple of things here on the show. One of the things it means is Ask the Chief with Regional Police Chief Mark Kroll and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up the Traffic Services Unit. They will both be with us between 11 and noon today, so you can have your policing questions answered. The first Tuesday of every month at this time also means our Tuesday Tech Spotlight, where we get to shine that light on one of the tech companies in our community. And today that company is Clockwork. Its co-founder and chief executive officer is Andrea Curry, and its co-founder and chief operating officer is Jennifer Buchanan, who both join us this morning. Andrea, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. And Jen, good morning to you as well.
Good morning, Mike. Great to be here with you.
It is great to have you both. I'm really interested in this startup that you've begun here, because I think what we're trying to do, and Andrea, I'll start with you here, is make EV charging more accessible and perhaps more reliable at the same time.
Yeah, precisely. So Clockwork is a software solution that essentially elevates the EV charging experience across all, brands of EV chargers out there. So today, 1 in 4 drivers can't get a charge when they pull up to the pump, if you will. So if you think of it like a gas station, you pull in 1 in 4 times, you actually can't get a charge in the public arena. And we are solving that problem so the drivers can have first charge success, essentially.
So, Jen, how do you go about solving that problem?
Yeah, it's I think a lot of people expect the chargers to just work when they pull up, like a light post, like a city light post that you plug them in and they're just going to work every time. The reality is that there's multiple pieces of data that come into our chargers. It's the hardware, the software, the comms, utilities. All those pieces have to be working and up. So with Clockwork, we're monitoring all of the pieces that really indicate whether a charger is up and ready for that first charge success. And when it's not, we're making sure that it's being reset, or that we're dispatching the right vehicle and truck with the technician to make sure it's up and ready for those drivers every time they pull up.
Andrea, where did the inspiration for Clockwork come from? I can just imagine you're driving your EV, you get to a charging station and you run into this problem. It's just a guess, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I was actually working for an EV charging hardware and software company and putting chargers in the ground. And after we got them in the ground, I was just shocked that this was an acceptable experience in the industry. Having a deep background in tech, we've come to like 99.99% uptimes in our SLAs in tech. And so the fact that 75% was the norm really disturbed me. And then Jen and I decided to solve the problem. The first thing we did was actually drive across the country in an EV, just charging and trying to understand the driver experience and really what all the little pieces of it were, so that we could figure out how to holistically solve it end to end. So it's been a great journey. We started that about a year. Today is actually our 1-year anniversary. And so we've been reminiscing this morning about that trip and all our great learnings along the way.
can you share some of that with us, Jen? That experience fascinates me and also makes me kind of anxious, because I have this, I don't even drive an electric vehicle, but I think of range anxiety, charging anxiety, all those other things. Can you share some of your experiences on that?
Yeah. Anyone who's driven an electric vehicle, it is really an incredible driving experience. Like, it is far superior to an ICE vehicle. I don't think people realize that until they drive it, though. It's quiet. There's no fumes. There's no exhaust. And you wake up every morning and your car is already like fueled up. It's ready to go. So the driving experience is really unique and quite special. It's the charging experience when you're away from home that can create that range anxiety. Can I get from here to, my grandparents or to parents' house, like that is, 3 hours away and back? Can I get to the hockey tournaments that I need to take my kids to after work? That is where that concern comes from, not from the vehicle. I don't believe. And our road trip definitely emphasized that, of making sure, we are traveling across the provinces to really understand what that experience was. And there were times where we're like, if this one charger doesn't work, we're going to have a problem, and we're going to have to plug in somewhere with a much slower ability to charge, a level 2 or even a level 3, like with an electrical cord, to be able to go to our next spot. That's not the driving experience that we want. And it's not what most people, plan their day around. So our experience of driving across the country really helped us understand what were the limitations, what were the challenges. And technology today can absolutely address this. There's no reason for that uncertainty to be there. So it became very obvious to us that this is a solution that we wanted to focus on.
Andrea, what previous experiences do you draw on that you're bringing with you now into Clockwork?
Yeah, I mean, we've both been more than 25 years in tech. I've been a clean tech co-founder previously. I was part of a company that essentially did a similar thing in the building space. So we plugged into IoT technologies in really, really large buildings, hospitals, sports arenas, et cetera, to trim out energy waste. And it was that idea of being able to use big data, machine learning, AI to really figure out where there are optimizations and then deliver that, through the Internet of Things, essentially so this is a very similar, I think, approach to, making sure we have all the bits and bytes we need, using that data to develop intelligence, and then using those IoT integrations to make changes. And then I'd say, in addition to that, Jen and I have been product managers for many years. So the product market fit piece is just, I think what we've been doing for the past little while. We came most recently from Exonify, where we actually met, which I think was really part of the inspiration for this company, was that that company is so strong and so well run. And after you work there, you're almost ruined for other companies a little bit. So we really felt like we wanted to pay back the experience we have, that we learned there, and create something great here in the Waterloo region.
I get the sense, Andrea, that you and Jen together are like, my buddies and I have probably opened like 3 or 4 different bars or started 3 or 4 different bands and conversations over our lifetime. The two of you sound like you were made to do this, and you probably had conversations about, we're going to start this company together someday, and Clockwork is it.
That's exactly how this happened. We actually started chatting back in February, a year ago. And it was, we want to take all of that learning, that experience over the last 25 years in tech, and make a difference in an area that we care about, but also create a company that really supports bringing on, top talent and enables them to do their best work, and work that they can take chances and innovate and really push the envelope forward. So yeah, I think we talked for a good 2 months before we settled on what we wanted to do the space. And then it was another 6 months of market testing, evaluation, and understanding exactly what the software would do. But we are definitely, software is the spot we wanted to get to. And doing that 6 month of research and the cross-country drive, and really taking on some consulting projects to get our hands dirty with the problem, has helped to focus in on what we're building.
It is a really cool story, and I'm so grateful the two of you could be here this morning to share it with us. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Andrea Curry and Jennifer Buchanan, Chief Operating and Chief Executive Officer and co-founders at Clockwork, joining us for the Tuesday Tech Spotlight this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. So if you'll just pardon me for a moment while I check out the results from the Adidas Track Nationals in Virginia Beach. And oh, look at that. The relay team in the shuttle hurdles, a team from what? The Laurel Creek Track and Field Club. A little birdie may have tipped me off to this, but really pleased to be joined on the show this morning by John McLean, who's a coach in sprint hurdles with the Laurel Creek Track and Field Club. John, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Mike.
And Mackenzie Hutchison joins us as well. Mackenzie is a hurdler herself and a grade 11 student at Waterloo, Oxford. Mackenzie, good morning.
Good morning.
Are we getting you out of class for a minute at WO this morning?
Yeah.
Good. That's the way it should be. You need a little bit of time off to talk about your success in hurdling, for sure. Thanks for joining us, Mackenzie.
No problem.
John, let me start with you. What does that mean? A feather in the cap, it seems, from the outside looking in, to have a podium finish at this event in Virginia Beach.
Yeah, it really is, and especially for the girls who managed to do it. I mean, the Adidas Indoor Track Nationals, it's one of the biggest high school track and field championships there is in the United States and, by extension, the continent, really. So to be able to take them down there and finish that well, it really was very special.
Mackenzie, how did you first get involved in this, in hurdling?
I was started by doing it at school, and then my friend was a part of Laurel Creek, and she told me to join. It would be so much fun, and so I joined.
You call it fun. I think about all the work you must do, especially to have a podium finish at such a big event. Can you take us through the training and the work that's involved in this?
Well, I mean, it's different every week, but it's just a lot of hurdling and speed stuff.
John, how often do you work with these kids?
Yeah, so the kids in the hurdle group, we train 3 times a week on the track. So during the winter, that's Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for us. And we have a lifting session, which we do at the Armory Clinic in Waterloo, as well on Wednesday. So it's 3 sessions per the week. As Mackenzie said, hurdling is muscle memory. And to get better at it, it's about just running over the hurdles again and again and again and again. So there's a lot of hurdling, and we divide up our weekly sessions into sessions where we focus on speed, where we focus on speed endurance and sort of hurdle volume, that sort of thing. So yeah, it depends too where we are in the year, whether we're in competition phase or whether we're in sort of a general prep phase, which is where we are now as we prepare for the outdoor season.
What's your background, John, that led you to be a coach at Laurel Creek Track and Field?
Yeah, well, I was a hurdler, an athlete too, as when I was younger. And yeah, I know, don't do it anymore. But I was very fortunate. I had excellent coaches when I with the Ottawa Lions, where I trained Hugh Conlon and Gerard Mock. And if you know anything about track and field, the ABC drills, Gerard actually invented those. So I was very fortunate to have been around that sort of early on. And then when my daughter got interested in track, I was sort of sucked back in, and here I am. It's been really enjoyable. It's sort of a fun way to be around it again.
Mackenzie, how do you balance your training and your track work with your studies at Waterloo Oxford?
Well, I always prioritize school, but I don't find it that difficult to balance them. Usually practices are later, and I have enough time to do everything. So
what was the experience like in Virginia Beach at the Adidas Nationals?
It was really cool. I've never traveled without my parents, so it was a good lesson. I went there, and it was, I got to be with all my friends this weekend and miss school for it.
How did you find that you stack up against these other athletes at the event? Does that give you a pretty good idea of where you're at with your ability?
Yeah, it does. Those are some of the best athletes I've seen in person, and I think just a competition like that pushes you to get better.
John, where are we at? I mean, when we talk about sports in this community, and look, you probably know, I'm doing this show from Flint today because as a broadcaster with the Kitchener Rangers, we're here for a playoff game tonight, and it's often about hockey or varsity sports, etc. How are we doing when it comes to track and field and the interest in it in our community?
That's a good question. It's an interesting one because the interest is very strong. There is a lot of interest in track and field. The barrier to entry is low. There aren't a lot of upfront costs if you want to run track. The equipment is, there's not a lot of cost there individually anyway. So the interest is there, but we do, as you know, struggle very much with finding access to facilities. To train, especially through the indoor season. Laurel Creek, we're split out over at the Waterloo Rec Center, we're in Martin, and we're in Guelph, and in some public school gyms, just to get the training in. So it is challenging for sure, but even with all of those challenges included, Laurel Creek, we finished 4th in the province through the indoor season in terms of club rankings. So we're getting it done, even with all those challenges we face.
That's impressive. And yes, I'm aware of the challenges, and I hope there's something that we can do to recognize the interest in it and the fact that we are short facilities right here in the region of Waterloo. I think we can and should do better in that regard. When you think longer term, John, what are the opportunities for these young athletes in the future? I mean, could we be helping to train the next Olympian here?
Oh, there's no question. Absolutely. They all start somewhere. And, if the facilities are attractive in the first place, it makes it easier to go back after that first practice. You walk in, you think, wow, this was great. So yeah, absolutely. Investing in those sorts of facilities is very important. And certainly while we were in Virginia Beach talking to the locals, they really, all of them commented on sort of the input to the economy that having a facility like that brings. The week before we were there, the NCAA championships had been there. And so think about all those people putting money into the local economy. It makes sense. And certainly the kids that I took down there to compete, all of them are certainly looking at athletic scholarships that, to the NCAA for sure.
Mackenzie, what do you think? Is there a future Canadian Olympics in there for you as a hurdler?
I don't know. I'll try.
Absolutely, you will. Absolutely, you will. Congratulations on the success at Virginia Beach. You've obviously done the community very proud, and it's great to get you both on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks very much, Mike.
John McLean and Mackenzie Hutchison joining us. John is a coach with Laurel Creek Track and Field Club. Mackenzie is a hurdler, a podium finish at one of the biggest events on the continent in Virginia Beach just a couple of weeks ago. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I mentioned it a little bit ago. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and that means your opportunity to have policing questions answered from the police leaders in our community. Ask the Chief coming up right here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. And it is on that note, we begin our monthly conversation with the police leaders in our community, allowing you the opportunity to have your questions answered as well. You know that phone lines stay open each and every month, first Tuesday from 11 until noon for Ask the Chief. So I'll remind you, 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Regional Police Chief Mark Farwell joins us. Always good to see you, Mark. Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Morning, Mike. Great to be here.
And Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths is with us as well. Scott, good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
And just a reminder to our listeners, Scott heads up the Traffic Services Unit, which is always one that elicits a lot of questions from us. Mark, I'm going to start with you on this, though, because a couple of things have caught my attention in the policing world, one of which is threats against the Jewish community in our region. And I wonder what you can tell us by way of update on those investigations.
Thanks, Mike. So, yeah, we've investigated an incident. It first came to our attention March 22nd. There was threats posted on a Hillel, Ontario website, which has a local Jewish chapter here in Waterloo region. And so over the course of a few days, our General Investigations Unit and Cybercrime Unit undertook some work. And ultimately on March 26th, we were successful in identifying a 17-year-old male who was arrested and charged for uttering threats to cause death or bodily harm. The male was from Kitchener. And they were deemed to be motivated by hate in nature, multiple threats sent to the website. And so we are satisfied that there's no ongoing threat to public safety. We do believe this was isolated, but gravely concerning to the local Jewish population. And we know broadly this is a pattern of concern that Jewish members across Canada have seen for some time. And there's a larger context to this that I can get into as well.
What is that larger context?
You know, when we look at hate crimes right across Canada, it's really important to understand who's targeted, who's impacted, and the data tells us a lot. So when we look at a 5-year trend, we've seen right across Canada, hate-motivated crimes and hate-motivated incidents have been on the increase, and we have to look at the details. About half of those are violent offenses in nature, so assaults, threats, arsons, those types of things. And then about 40% are mischief, property damage. But when you start breaking it down by category, race is the most targeted identity group. So oftentimes that's something that we're dealing with. But when you look at the category of religion, locally and across Canada, year over year, we're seeing about 70% of religiously targeted hate crimes and hate-motivated incidents target the Jewish population. So every incident matters, every investigation matters, and we want to, lift up every community possible. But we do see some specific targeting related to the Jewish community, and that goes into the work that we try to do to build relations and connections in times of peace and in times of celebration, so that we have relationships that allow us to carry through these investigations in a supportive and successful way.
How does the service go about building those relationships, Mark?
We do it with every group possible that, looks to build relations right across their own networks. And so we have dedicated teams or members that are carrying forth the investigations, but also whether it's a leadership connection, and we're striving to make those everyday connections. So on a weekly basis, we're hosting a forum for community leaders and organizations to join us in conversations about hate in Waterloo Region. We're hosting a hate crime conference coming up just in the middle of April as well. But more importantly it comes down to relationships. It comes down to building trust and to ensure that the flow of reporting comes to us. And we have, as I've mentioned, something called a community safety and well-being plan. And that is really the catalyst for our community to come together on issues such as hate and hate crime, to build local solutions and to flow information in the ways that we can support and also hold some accountability.
I thought, Mark, there might be a connection. There's at least a similarity when we talk about the religious undertones to these hate-motivated attacks on the Jewish community to what we have been seeing by way of break-ins at places of worship. There was a story just in this morning's Waterloo Region Record about a break-in at a Hindu temple in Cambridge. They don't believe it was because of their faith. They believe it was because there was an opportunity perhaps for somebody to find some money or something valuable. But are you making any connections between break-ins at places of worship and the faith communities targeted, or is it just that maybe a crime of opportunity?
Yeah, great setup for an important dialogue. So anytime any place of worship is targeted, we have that dual lens on it. Is this simply an isolated incident, a crime of opportunity, or is there something deeper that we need to be concerned about? And we understand that perception matters. So what we've been looking at is on March 26th, there was 2 incidents of property damage and what we categorize as attempted break-in at places of worship. There was one in Kitchener, McIntyre Drive and Strasbourg Road, and one in Cambridge, Old Mill Road and Meadow Creek Lane in Cambridge. Both were Hindu temples. There was no entry into the facilities, but we have that lens of understanding, was it simply an attempt to break in, for theft or other purposes, or was this, something deeper? So that's the lens that our investigators are taking right now. We have a dedicated break, enter, and vehicle theft team that becomes involved. We also have our general investigations unit. And so that is still under investigation. I don't have any update to provide today, but I think the impact is all the same, that whether it's your home, a business, or a place of worship, people do feel targeted. They do feel that is something of grave concern. And we work with all of our residents and our faith communities as well on what we call target hardening or crime prevention through environmental design, and really want to encourage reporting at every opportunity. that data helps us to bolster and improve the work that we do. It also helps us to support people where they live, work, and play and worship.
Good information there on all counts. Scott, let me shift things over to you, because now that spring is here, although you'd never know it with another freezing rain possibility overnight tomorrow, but we'll leave that aside. I know police, now that spring is here, are out with an education campaign and a reminder about the Fatal Four. What would you like drivers in our region to know about that as we enter the new season?
So again, it's a perfect segue into beautiful spring weather. We're looking at an increase in road users and different types of vehicles. So we're always trying to make people aware of those, excuse me, of those road users, and of the fact that as the weather gets better, as the roadways get clearer, as the snow melts away, we're going to see more young people on the roads. We're going to see more people using the multi-use trails and sidewalks around the neighborhoods. And we really want to have people focus on safe driving behaviors. So I know that through the winter, we're focused on safe driving through means of preparing yourself for the roadway, preparing yourself for the weather conditions that you're facing. But now we want people to focus on really looking at how to expand your field of vision, to be more aware of people and vehicles using the roadways, and to mind your speed, to pay full attention on the roadway, as well as making sure that you're safe while you do that. Because as we know, as the seasons change, we tend to see a bit of an uptick every time the seasons change in regards to collisions and other events, simply because people are excited. They want to get out and enjoy the weather, or they want to get out and enjoy that motorcycle or vehicle that they've been storing for the winter. But we have to do so safely, and we have to do so understanding that there are so many different people who use our roadways every day.
Yeah, it's a great reminder at this time of year, because that anticipation and excitement can sometimes lead to carelessness, and we want to make sure that we're fully aware when we get behind the controls of that vehicle, whatever the vehicle may be. Okay, I have an emailed question for Scott that we'll get to after this break, and as you know, you are welcome to ask your questions of our policing leaders with us here on Ask the Chief. Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up the Traffic Services Unit, and Police Chief Mark Crowell with us on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and that means an hour with our police leaders. Chief Mark Crowell from the Waterloo Regional Police Service, and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up the Traffic Services Unit, with us for Ask the Chief. Scott, I'll direct this to you because it came into my email in that direction. The email address is mike@570news.com. And the question, Scott, is around alcohol-free beers, or what we call those near beers with 0.05% or 0.5% alcohol content. Anyway, the question around drivers on the graduated system who are not to have alcohol, how do these particular beverages fit in? And then, and again, this is the question coming from Wally. Don't shoot the messenger here. What if I drink 3 or 4 of them very quickly and then drive? I'll have beer on my breath, but it's not alcoholic beer. What happens if I get stopped in a ride check? Maybe just some general knowledge around those alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverages, Scott.
So certainly thank Wally for his email there. I have to admit, I'm not fully versed in what alcohol-free qualifies as in Ontario, or when they're made. You said 0.5 or below sort of situation. So whether or not those contain alcohol or not, you're looking at young and novice drivers. That's drivers 21 and under. And drivers with a graduated license, like a G2 or a G1 license, are required to have 0 alcohol at all times. So if I was a young driver or a novice driver, I would be taking a very hard look at the contents of those beers, and to determine whether or not, if there is any content of alcohol in those. Because if our roadside screen devices detect alcohol, there are consequences. There's a Highway Traffic Act charge, as well as a suspension that goes along with having the mere presence of alcohol in your system. So the second part of that question for Wally is if he was to drink and have the odor of alcohol or have the odor of beer on his breath, whether that would trigger something. What I would say to him is that basically our officers are trained in detection of impaired driving, in looking for indicia of impairment. And they're going to, if they smell alcohol, if they smell what they believe to be beer on a person's breath, they may ask Wally to provide a sample into a roadside screening device. The result of which may be zero, but certainly that suspicion, that odor, is part of the evidence that we use to gather in order to determine whether or not a person's impaired on the side of the road, or whether or not we even need to, in fact, have suspicion and have that person do a roadside screening device in order to determine whether or not they have alcohol in their system.
All right. Wally, appreciate the question. Excellent response there. And it reminds me of a time I got stopped late at night. I was driving for B&D deliveries at the time, and I had like 4 calls on board. So my back seat was just chock full of beer cases. I got the suspicious eyebrow raised, but I'm like, look, I'm just delivering the stuff. I haven't cracked anything open. And it was a perfectly acceptable stop. And we just moved on getting those important cases of beer delivered to people at their homes, which was my job at the time. All right, let's go to the phones here from you on Ask the Chief this morning. Al is with us. Al, good morning. What's your question?
Morning, gentlemen. Mike, you might not like this question, but a couple of weeks ago, Chief, there was information released on how well the speed cameras in our region were working, picking off speeders. There was conversations on the radio here, though, that it was nothing but just a cash cab or not cab, cash crow, grab or cash cow. And I'm wondering, are there municipalities doing the same thing with the cameras, getting speeders to slow down, or are they working on some other system? Thanks very much.
All right, Al. Thanks for that question, Al.
Thanks. I'll start, and then I'll let Scott give you some details. So appreciate the question, and this is not without controversy. We should be having important conversations about the best fit for our community. What I would say is I am aware that other jurisdictions across Ontario are exploring or implementing what we have here in Waterloo Region, automated speed enforcement across their jurisdictions. And what I would say is, I mean, the demands on us are higher and greater than we can attend to in terms of our visibility, our enforcement, and the high danger, the high injury, and the fatalities that our members are responding to are significant year over year. So we embrace the program largely. We work with the municipalities, with the regions on a number of traffic calming measures, planning for road use, and then coordinated visibility enforcement efforts that the traffic services and other teams carry out. So we support it broadly, but we understand that there's nuances with all of it in terms of what roads are appropriate, what speed limits are appropriate on what roads. Those are active, important conversations that we have. But I would just say this, for all the time that I've been a police officer, and I'll speak for Scott myself, traffic safety and road safety is the number one issue that citizens report as their greatest concern. To elected officials, it's one of our greatest concerns as well in terms of the impact on our community. So we are a work in progress as a society, as a community, but automated speed enforcement is part of the solution. We need to find the right balance on it. So Scott, do you have any more insights from the work that your team does every day?
Thanks, Chief. Other than to say that we work in collaboration with our municipalities in regards to traffic safety in general. So I meet regularly with representatives from the region and the cities and the townships, and our focus is on road safety in a 360-degree lens. So we are part of that solution. Enforcement is part of that solution. ASEs play a part in that, and they are something that the region has endorsed and has implemented in order to enhance that. And my team's out there every day. We are out there trying to respond to community complaints, but we're also out there in a preventative measure to sort of encourage people to drive properly. And the cameras offer that opportunity to be in locations regularly, such as school zones, where we know that there are real risks for serious injury and death when it comes to collisions. So They're part of our solution, as are we with the municipalities and townships in this city, in this region.
It's a great question, Al. Thanks for bringing it forward on Ask the Chief this morning as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and on this day every month, we spend an hour with our police leaders. Regional Police Chief Mark Farwell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths are with us for Ask the Chief. We'll get to Ken's call and yours as well if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are joined this morning by Regional Police Chief Mark Farwell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads the Traffic Services Unit. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and on the first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon, these two police leaders join us so you can have your policing questions answered. So let's get right back to the phones and have another one of your questions answered. Ken is with us. Good morning, Ken. What's your question?
Morning. This one would be for the traffic department. On Bluevale Road, there's a school, St. Agnes, it's an elementary school. Excuse me. There's a set of speed cameras there that face in the direction of Bridgeport Road. If you were coming from Bluevale Collegiate towards Bridgeport Road, there's the cameras, and then there's a speed sign that's maximum 30. And within, I would say, 2 to 3 houses, there's another sign that maximum 40 ends. Which sign would be enforced? Because it's really confusing there.
All right, Ken, appreciate the question. Scott?
Sorry, Ken, thanks for the call. So there's a 40 end sign after the 30 sign? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That's where we're going.
What I would say to you is that I would take the lower of the two, and I would say if it says 30 zone begins, then that's where you should take the 30 zone to do. And I believe that the city of Waterloo, they've lowered school zone speeds to 30 kilometers an hour. So I would take that as the number with which you're expected to drive and with which enforcement would begin.
It's quite possible. I had a friend tell me a similar story from his neighborhood, not with a speed sign, but with a sign that just seemed to be in an odd spot on the street. He contacted his counselor and they actually ended up moving the sign. This could be an oversight somewhere. I'll just throw that out there, Ken. And maybe the counselor, I think that's Jen Vasic, Ward 5 in Waterloo. Anyway, might be worth looking into, but I think Scott's spot on with the lower speed is probably the safest one for sure, especially if you're going past the camera. I have another question via email for you, Scott, and it's around HOV lanes. And the question is, because of improper use of the high occupancy vehicle lanes on the highway, drivers can be fined and even lose or have demerit points added. Is there any fine or demerit point issued if you weave in and out of those HOV lanes where it's not marked that you can do so? So you're going over that box, I guess, on the roadway.
It certainly is the opportunity to be charged with failing to obey the signage that's there. So if there is a sign that says "Do not cross," it's like if you're disobeying a sign, there is a general applicable charge. I believe that comes with 2 demerit points. What people need to consider is that with every if there's a official signage that's posted, provided it's appropriately signed, in like a no truck route or something like that, that they need to consider that there's always an offense that may be applicable to that. And if it's a driving offense, an offense that involves the operation of a vehicle, demerit points may also always apply in almost every situation. So we have a vehicle, there's a person driving it. If there's a sign and you're disobeying it, there may come with some consequences, including demerit points.
All right. Lynn, thanks for that question via email to Mike at 570news.com. Mark, I want to swing it back to you and ask about something that came up at the last Police Services Board meeting that always catches my attention. And I confess it catches my attention because I think it was Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where they were arresting people for crimes before they were committed because it was the future, of course, and artificial intelligence was being used. I know that's not how we're using artificial intelligence or ever will, perhaps, but the Regional Police Service is looking at ways to incorporate AI into its practices. How would that look? What does that look like here?
Thanks, Mike. And there was an excellent article that was on City News Kitchener, and it was called "It's the Wild West: How AI is Creating New Frontiers for Crime in Canada." And it really gave an overview in terms of where we are in society. And so what we've been doing is trying to last, couple of years prepare for the environment that we're in. We've said for some time that we police two neighborhoods, and the cyber neighborhood, the online neighborhood of crime and activity, continues to grow and flourish and evolve. So we have for some time had an innovation and modernization unit that looks to onboard new technology, learn about how we will adapt and procure and implement technology over time. So currently, we're deploying a number of ALPR, so automated license plate reader systems on our frontline vehicles. So when members of our community see a frontline vehicle, it's very likely that it'll be equipped with a license plate reader. That system itself has an AI, artificial intelligence capability to read the license plate, to do a records check, and determine if there's an offense or someone's wanted by police, based on the triggers in the system. We've also looked at a growing technology related to body-worn cameras and a program that allows actually the narrative that gets created through the transmission of the communication to actually create written reports. So we have looked at that as proof of concept. We're not moving ahead with it currently. It's something that is, very early days for some of this, but we're looking at all types of solutions that might enhance the work that we're doing, automation, efficiency in terms of the search capabilities. But we're also looking to tackle some of the major challenges we're seeing in terms of criminal behavior.
So when that comes to the automated license plate readers, if somebody's driving a stolen vehicle or might be involved in a crime that's been committed, that's what we're looking at when you talk about deterring criminal behavior.
Yeah, so there's a number of settings that can be put into place, but essentially the technology in the license plate reader recognizes license plates. It does the identification of the numbers and letters. It does a search in the system, and then it will alert the officer to a license renewal that's required, so an outdated license, a vehicle that's not registered, and we can actually put parameters for wanted individuals, wanted vehicles, and also a number of prohibitions and so on. So this is being used widespread across Ontario. It's a great advancement in our ability to use an automated solution to do something we've been doing manually for many years. And I know that talking to Scott this morning, he said this is one major sticking point is we're getting so many hits from people that are not registering their vehicles, their license plates, and their licenses. They're not renewing their licenses. And so we don't want to be stopping anybody, unnecessarily. So this is a public awareness point that we want to ensure people are aware of this requirement to still register your licenses and your vehicles.
We'll come back to that with Scott in just a moment. The one other thing I wanted to ask then about AI, Mark, and its usage by Waterloo Regional Police. You mentioned those body cameras. Are those officers who are equipped with the body-worn cameras? Are those cameras operating at all times, or is it at the discretion of the officer when they're activated?
Yes, it's a great question. We have a terrific procedure that basically stipulates when officers are required to put the camera on. And essentially, anytime they're interacting with the public, that's when they activate the camera. They provide a notification to the member of the public that the interaction is being recorded. And we expect that during the general course of their active duties, when they're outside the vehicles, engaging with the public, caring for their duties, that the recording is occurring. There's no reason for when they're in their quieter settings, within the police station, that they need to be recording. So we are still learning on the total implementation of use. Now we've rolled it over 3 years. But that's just one example of one advancement that is at the ground floor, but it will evolve over time. And so our exploration of that and other automated, recording technology, search capabilities. The great frontier in Canada, I would say, related to all of this is facial recognition. Is from a privacy standpoint, from a public comfort standpoint, how will Canada move ahead with facial recognition technology based on all the recording that is happening by corporations, by private citizens, and by public sector entities like police? We still have a lot of work to do just to hammer out our total level of agreement on what those engagements will look like moving forward.
Great information there in the new frontier in policing for sure. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths with us. It's Ask the Chief on the Mike Farwell Show, first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon here on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and that means your opportunity to have your policing questions answered. Phone lines open as always, 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. You get the opportunity to have those questions answered because we are joined on the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon by Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up our traffic services unit. It's the Ask the Chief segment. Scott, I'll direct this one to you, however, and Chief Crowell referred to it earlier with those automated license plate readers, picking up a lot of notices of people who may be driving with expired plates, et cetera. There's no fee anymore. Those fees have been wiped out, and maybe that's making people forgetful of the need to renew despite the fact they don't have to pay.
And that's exactly right, Mike. And with the removal of those fees came the letter in the mail that notified people that their license or their ownership needed to be renewed, and to process that through the ministry. And what's been happening is we've been finding a lot of drivers, and this is a request that actually came right from my officers on the road, who are saying, like, we're finding a lot of these here, and a lot of them are completely avoidable. Like, all you need to do is take out your license. It's April 1st, it's spring cleaning. Let's open up your wallet, take out your license, take a look at the date on your license, and determine whether or not you're close to or need to renew your license information online. Or if it's close to your birthday, take a look at going to the website to confirm whether your license plates need renewal for that 1 year or 2 year period. And it really is as easy as going to ontario.ca. There's a hot link right on the front page. I looked at it this morning just to confirm, where you can go on there and do those renewals. And there's also a feature where you can set yourself a reminder so that you have them email you when it's closer to the date that you need to do so that you don't forget to do that. Because really what we're focusing on is making sure that drivers are out there, they're doing things properly, and that their administration's properly kept up to date.
And I'm certain that with your frontline officers talking to you about this, staff, that there are more important things, more pressing matters that they could be dealing with while they're out there on patrol.
Yeah, certainly. And we want to focus on those high risk behaviors, on those fatal four. We want to focus on our public complaints that we receive in regards to locations of interest. And it's just another thing that officers just want to see the people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing kind of kept out of whatever net that is cast by the ALPR, just to avoid that inconvenience of having to be stopped and told, or having to have that address at the side of the road, as opposed to in the comfort of your own home.
It's a great reminder, and it is an easy process. I had to go through it last year. I set the reminder because I'm a dum too. So the reminder will come to me when it's time to renew again. And it is a really simple process at ontario.ca. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about this morning, Scott, and I had this happen to a buddy of mine. He actually called into the show and complained about it because his wife was involved in a motor vehicle collision. And let's just say it was not an easy or enjoyable process with the tow truck company that showed up to respond when that collision occurred. What should people know about their rights as consumers when it comes to dealing with sometimes unethical towing companies?
Well, it certainly is an issue that comes up frequently here at our service as well, with calls that I get from the public as well as members of our own service. We are, as some of the public may know, as of January 1st, 2024, a new provincial law came into effect, basically making towing regulation a provincial responsibility. And with that provincial responsibility comes some rules and some protections for consumers. So the first thing that people really need to understand is that all tow truck drivers and tow companies need to now be licensed with the Ontario government. So they should and have to carry proof of that registration. So if you're dealing with a driver or a company, they need to be registered with the ministry. If you're in an accident, it's some of the worst time that you could possibly, sometimes it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And it's a very traumatic event. So the government has realized that in the regulation and in the law by saying very specifically from the get-go, 200 meters away, no truck driver is allowed to approach the scene of a collision or a driver or a person in that collision unless they're called there. So if there's tow trucks, if you're in a fender bender and all of a sudden there's tow trucks right up on you and you haven't called them and the other driver hasn't called them, they shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be soliciting. They're prohibited from soliciting work from you. So the idea that they're at the roadside pressuring you to take their services or to accept their work is also prohibited. And if any tow, whether it's called by yourself or whether it's called by the police on your behalf, if you're there, they have to provide you a written consent form for you to sign so that you understand your rights as well as their maximum pricing. So you understand the limits of what they're able to or what they could be charging you. Because we have people oftentimes who we talk to who have they've consented to towing services and then they get these bills that are absolutely astronomical, and that is prohibited. They are required to register their rates with the ministry and to provide you a list of their maximum charges. There's a lot of other features that is involved with your interaction with the tow company and the tow drivers. I won't get into it too deep here, but I wanted to assure the public that there is enforcement. We do enforcement of tow truck drivers and companies. The provincial government has inspectors who are also doing the same. And people should be comfortable in dealing with tow companies and tow operators. They should be working under these rules. And if you don't feel comfortable at any time, you have the right to decline any work that anybody who's approached you or anybody who's trying to solicit business from you. And the WRPS does not endorse. We do not, we've had instances where people have been provided sheets of paper saying this is what the WRPS cost is, or WRPS, we work with WRPS. No, we don't endorse, nor do we have any relationship with a tow company where we're soliciting business or they're permitted to solicit business on our behalf. We'll call our tow company if we're seizing a vehicle or if we need to have a car removed if the driver's gone to the hospital or so on and so forth. But nobody is working under our authorization if they're approaching you as a customer saying that they work with us or so on and so forth.
That's really good advice. And I think when it comes down to what you said, Scott, about if you're feeling uncomfortable, you are not required under any circumstances to sign that piece of paper or work with that particular towing company.
Absolutely. And there's absolutely no requirement, unless there's an officer on the scene of the collision who's ordering a vehicle to be removed from a collision. There is absolutely no authority for a tow truck driver to come up. And we've had people say this, oh, the OPP has told us we need to remove every vehicle off the roadway, or we need to do this or that. That will never happen. These companies oftentimes use questionable tactics in order to garner work. And unfortunately, in a lot of situations, once they've got your car hooked, once they've got your car towed away somewhere or stored somewhere, oftentimes we're finding people get into deep issues with payments and costs and fees racking up. And we just want to see that not happen.
Hopefully when the first Tuesday of May rolls around, I'll be back in studio and not on a road trip with the Rangers. But I thank both of you, gentlemen, for making this work today electronically. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths on Ask the Chief. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. An hour feels like a long time to spend with our policing leaders, and then it goes by in the blink of an eye. Thanks again to Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths. They're with us on the first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon for Ask the Chief. It's April the 1st, the first Tuesday of this month. I'm on the road in Flint, and I want to hear from you on the Talkback Hour, okay? So let's chat, make the call. We'll answer and have a conversation coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
We most certainly encourage you to talk back during this hour every day, noon until 1. And hey, when we talk back to each other today, let me know what's going on back home, okay? Because I'm all by my lonesome here in Flint. Well, I got my buddy Paul Fixter with me, of course, and we're going to be broadcasting the Rangers Firebirds Game 3 tonight. Pre-game show underway at 6:30. But between now and then, we have this hour together to take your calls and have a conversation. So let's get to that, shall we? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Jersey Bill, you get to start us off this afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hey, yeah, this permanent resident of Canada is happy to talk to this to the temporary resident of the USA there.
Thank you.
And I just, I was going to just start with something else, but I mean, something caught me as you were ending the last hour, and that is that it almost sounds that you were hoping that the Rangers are going to be knocked out, so you wouldn't have to do this onerous double duty. I know you're not a homer, but really, shouldn't you want to be with the Rangers right through the Memorial Cup now?
I certainly do. And it is, I do feel sometimes like it's onerous double duty, but it's the most enjoyable double duty I can get. So the quicker we finish here in Flint, Billy, the quicker I can come home. I don't want to have to come back here. No disrespect to the USA.
Oh, I understand that. No, yeah, let them all be 4-0 wins, along the way there. But as an American, I'm sort of wondering, have you what's getting any feeling about the ongoing tensions just in this brief time you've been there, or haven't you been able to notice anything about that yet?
No, I am getting a feeling, and it's interesting. We were had people concerned about our border crossing and how much different that would be this time around, and it was normal, no issues whatsoever. We had dinner at a nice restaurant not too far from Flint in Fenton last evening, and I'll tell you what, the staff couldn't have been kinder. They loved us Canadians, they said, and we even had great talk about hockey. So no complaints whatsoever. Everybody here has been just terrific. There's no sense of any animosity on the ground.
Yeah, it just struck me. Earlier in the year I ripped you because of my grandson doing the anthems there at the Ranger game about you not paying attention to the anthems. Who would have thought at that point that this whole idea about the anthems and about the booing the anthems would become paramount, something that was just really before that just a formality. It's just crazy the way the world has gone.
Yeah, no question about it. Billy, appreciate the call today, and I will be paying attention to the anthems at the Dort Federal Event Center tonight. But since there was no booing in Kitchener when the U.S. anthem played. I doubt we'll hear anything like that here in Flint tonight. Next, we go to Ian. Ian, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hola, amigo Michael. Mi telefono con vehicles de electricidad. How's my Spanish?
You're calling from your electric vehicle. I think I picked up there.
You checked it out. Hey, Mike, I'm actually about an hour from the border. I just did almost 9,000 kilometers driving in my electric vehicle from Kitchener to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and heading home, buddy. And really happy to see the Rangers are doing well. But I enjoyed your guest this morning and talking. And, you know, I think I've kind of proven that whole range anxiety thing is a bit of a myth with the amount of kilometers that I've just done. And, you know, driving even with Mexico, you know, found charging stations, multiple types down there. And I'll tell you, this trip's been amazing, really eye-opening. And, you know, the range anxiety thing, the more I've done this, when you look at it, a lot of cases give you probably anywhere from 10 to 20% extra between stops and on that stuff. And the other thing I know you're nervous on, but I would say 90% plus of this drive's been full self-driving. Like, the car's been driving me to all the places, right to the charging stations as well. But anyways, I enjoyed your guest this morning. And, hey, maybe some show we can talk more about this road trip. But the other thing I got to tell you, buddy, when I crossed the border, Trudeau resigned. When I'm leaving, we're in this chaos with the tariffs and you know, everything. Mexico, I tell you, really gives you calm when you get away. And no offense to the mass media, but it really gives you a lot of calm when you get away from a lot of this sort of machine of hype. And, you know, it's just chest pounding in so many respects. I'm just kind of, it's nice to just not listen to a lot of this stuff and get away from it all. Thanks,
all right, Ian,
really
appreciate it. Good to hear from you. Thanks for the call. And look, I get that. I think it comes part and parcel with being away, right? When we're away and we can unplug, it is rather restful. I get your point, though, about the constant cycle of news that you are subjected to here in North America, et cetera. But it is a choice, right? To consume or not to consume. And again, when we're away, we tend to do just that and get away. Please, I know you think the self-driving's awesome, and maybe it is. Don't do that. Like, the vehicles should still be driven. They're not fully autonomous. And why do you have a car if you're not going to drive the car? I love driving. I love vehicles. Stop doing the self-driving thing. We did have some guests on today from Clockwork, which is a company in the region that is trying to make EV charging more accessible to more vehicles. Because oftentimes you'll get to an EV charging port, it won't be the correct one for your electric vehicle, or it won't be ready to provide you the needed electricity. So Clockwork is a company we talked about on the show today that has created software, a platform for you to help get over some of those hurdles. Okay, we got to take a quick break. Jason, you're next, and I see Dylan too, and there's a line for you here on our Talkback Hour this afternoon as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, let's get right back to the phones, because the more we hear from you, the better on the Talkback Hour. Jason, you are next. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. Being that tomorrow's weather is supposed to be garbage and today is beautiful, I decided to go for a walk, and that email you got from the one lady about the mayor, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the street name, but I happen to find myself down Arlington at Woodland, and there's a big building going up and solar panels on the boulevard, but I did not see no tree falling over.
Well, the trees are in the cemetery, and they are on property in the cemetery that abuts the backyards of homes nearby, or
Okay,
on the other
that's
side of the property
that's
line.
exactly where my mom is, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. so maybe I missed something.
Yeah, Jason, I appreciate the call. I can assure you, and like, I'm not here to give out the mayor's personal address. He's not on Arlington Boulevard. If you just listen, uh, the just think of Woodland Cemetery, okay, and the neighborhood that it's in. Obviously, any cemetery is going to have other properties abutting its property line. That's the situation that's happening right now in the mayor's neighborhood. And no, to be clear, he is not in any way making use of city resources to have trees removed on his personal property. The city is doing necessary work in the cemetery, and it just so happens that the cemetery backs onto the mayor's property and the property of many others in that particular area of Kitchener, but it's not along Arlington Boulevard. Okay, back to the phones we go on your Talkback Hour. Dylan, you're next. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. Just wanted to expand a little bit on something Jersey Bill was touching on. I recently made a withdrawal from my bank account, and I bought your radio station and all the sister companies along with it. And I've made the executive decision that I only want you to do either the Mike Farwell show or the Rangers cast. Which one do you want to do and why?
You can't handle the double dipping, the double duty that I'm doing. Is that it?
My reasons, I'm the owner. I don't have to disclose my reasoning. You're the employee, and I want you to pick one of the two and only one and tell me why.
Why? Okay, so this came up not too long ago. Dylan, it's like asking me to pick my favorite kid or my favorite dog. You're killing me here, buddy. You're killing me here.
That was the goal. Do you have a preference? Do you have a preference, the talk radio or the sportscasting? If you saw yourself doing one for the rest of your life and you could only do one, and it doesn't have to be the Rangers and it doesn't have to be the Mike Farwell show, but what is in your heart of hearts? What do you enjoy the most and why?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the God's honest truth, Dylan. And in my heart of hearts, what I enjoy the most is radio. And I say that with full respect to our friends at Rogers TV who simulcast this show. But my heart has always been with radio. It lies in radio. It remains in radio. And obviously the two shows, doing sportscasting, play-by-play in particular, and hosting this show, offer two completely different experiences, and I enjoy them both immensely. I really do. I don't get to talk to you like this while I'm doing play-by-play, and I don't get to say he shoots, he scores, and get really excited watching a hockey game when I'm doing this show. So I love them both. I'm like the mini wheats of local radio, right? I got my crusty side, which is right here with you, and my sweet side, which is on hockey.
Great answer to keep both of your sets of fans happy. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate you, man. I really appreciate the call. I felt bad when I got put on the spot about that once before too, and I'm forgetting the gentleman who called. Shame on me. But said, if money was no object, because the truth of it all, and I always like to be upfront with you on this. Working in sports in the Ontario Hockey League is not exactly a lucrative full-time job, so I couldn't just leave one and go and do the other. But I truly do. I truly do enjoy both experiences that I get, and I would miss either of them terribly should one ever be taken away or disappear from me. And boy, oh boy, now we also know how much money Dylan has in his bank account, because not only did this radio station not come cheap, I sure don't come cheap, pal, okay? Except for hockey broadcasts. Okay, who do we got next? Looks like Mark is next on the Talkback Hour. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Farzy. How's the weather down there in Flint?
You know what? I checked it just during the noon news. It's sunny. It's beautiful. Only 2 degrees, but I'm telling you what, these feet were made for walking. And as soon as we're done here today, I'm going to get outside and get some fresh air. It's a beautiful day here in Flint.
Nice. Same here, Mike. It's sunny and about 1 degree.
Good.
Tomorrow's supposed to be lousy, though. Okay. Got a question for you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Okay. After the Rangers knock out Flint this weekend,
yes.
Who will they play next?
It depends.
Well, give me a couple options, Mike.
The most likely scenario is the Rangers playing the Windsor Spitfires, but Windsor has to win their series first, and so we just have to wait and see. But the most likely if Kitchener should succeed here in Flint, is to play the Windsor Spitfires.
Okay, after they knock off Windsor, then when will they play London next? Would that be for the final?
It would be, but you're getting way on down the road there, my friend.
I know I am.
Okay.
One other thing, Mike.
Yes.
Larry did a great job yesterday. I enjoyed listening to him.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm happy to leave the show in capable hands when I'm not here.
Okay, Mike, you take care, okay?
Thanks, buddy. Good to hear from you, Mark. Larry will be filling in again on Friday for those of you keeping score at home, because I have to travel back home, and that will prevent me from doing the show Friday. But if there is a 5th game in this playoff series, I will be back for that on Friday night. Game 3 tonight, game 4 on Thursday here in Flint. Game 5, if necessary, back in Kitchener on Friday. I'll return for that. So Dylan, my boss, forgive me for not doing the daytime show on Friday, okay? This is the Mike Farwell Show and your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour does continue. It's a busy afternoon. We'll go next to Kyle. Kyle, good afternoon. You're on Talkback.
You take the chip and you just dunk it once, man. No double dipping, okay?
You took a chip, you took a bite, and you put it back in the bowl.
Listen,
You
I will
dipped
dip
again.
the way I want to, and you dip the way you want to, okay?
That's right, Dylan, my new boss. I'm double dipping, pal. Get used to it.
Are you, I heard that you're coaching the Rangers tonight.
No, I am definitely not doing that. Although I do confess to having a very, very interesting chat with the coach of the Rangers last night. So
you guys aren't
that's
switching
all I
jobs? You're not switching jobs?
Definitely
You're doing play-by-play and you're coaching, or that's not going to happen?
Absolutely not. He is totally sick of me. I can promise you that. And I could never, ever do his job, nor do I want to. He is one of the best, and happy to have UC Ahokas doing his job. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I heard that there's a Home Depot going into to Listowel, eh?
Really? Listy's getting a Home Depot.
Yep. Apparently, if you talk to Neil, maybe he can get you some insight on it. But that's what I heard. So.
All right. I will check in with Counselor Anstedt. You betcha.
All right. Sounds good. Happy April Fools, my friend.
Wait a minute. It's past noon. You're not allowed to do that. Oh, Kyle gave up. Okay. Isn't it the way it works? If you make your joke after the noon hour, you are the biggest fool of them all? I don't know. I'm so clued out of April the 1st. Let's go next to Grant on the Talkback Hour. Grant, good afternoon.
Oh, I want to see Landon Sims. I want to see him get caught by ending off. I think they should have
Grant, hang on. Landon Sim, he doesn't play for the Flint Firebirds, so you're gonna have to wait a long time. Okay.
Well, I think they should combine during shift change. London Knights come out with a couple of their players, so Kitchener can beat up on them.
But Grant, the Kitchener Rangers are playing the Flint Firebirds right now. They're not playing the London Knights.
I know that, but
Okay.
I think they should have them have two-timers. Why not? You date two-timing. Why not?
What does that even mean?
Whatever you want to think it means.
All right, Grant. Thank you. Thank you for the call, Grant. I will make it mean whatever I want it to mean, because isn't that the world we live in today? It doesn't matter what I intended with the words that I spoke. All that matters is how you interpreted them and the impact they had on you. And then I'm in a whole big cauldron of hot water, right? That's the way it works right now. I have nothing but the purest of intention, and I have purity in my heart. And I promise you, if I am not being pure of heart, I will let you know up front how sinister I am being. I guarantee it. You will always know where I'm coming from. Today, that just so happens to be Flint, Michigan, where we're on the road with the Rangers, and your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is your opportunity to have your voice heard. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-57 15. It's also a way to keep me company while I'm here in Flint. We're getting ready for the Rangers Firebirds Game 3 tonight. Paul Fixter and I will be on the air with your Harris Law pregame show at 6:30. But I thought, what the heck? What else am I going to do on a beautiful day in Flint anyway? And I always love these conversations with you. So we'll continue the Talkback Hour. Next, we go to Rob. Hi, Rob. You're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you, young fella?
I'm just fine. Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just wondering if you found out anything about our young player that did the jock adjustment, if he's suspended, or have you found anything out about that?
At this point, to the best of my knowledge, there is no suspension, but that can change in the next 6 hours. So I don't have certainty on that. I know it was the subject of a good deal of discussion last evening, but at this point, I'm not aware of any disciplinary measures.
Okay. All right. No, I'm just curious because I was trying to find that out, and I can't find nothing. So I guess I didn't have to, but that's great.
All right, Rob. Thanks for the call. Good to hear from you. And thanks for coming to The Source. We are your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey and very proud to be. So again, that's as of 12:35 this afternoon. If anything changes, we promise to let you know. The player that Rob alludes to is Carson Campbell of the Kitchener Rangers, who after scoring his goal and taking some guff, let's say, from the Flint Firebirds in Game 2 on Sunday, yes, made a gesture that the league tends to frown upon. So we're waiting to see/hear if anything further comes of that. But at this point, as I said, it was the subject of considerable discussion last night, and I have not heard anything formal by way of discipline for Carson Campbell. So if there is, we will let you know about it. Along those lines, I thought for sure, and I still can't believe this, quite frankly, when it was reported last night before Game 2 between the Barrie Colts and the Niagara Ice Dogs, that the Niagara Ice Dogs were not going to be starting their number one goaltender, Owen Flores, and in fact were under league and team imposed discipline that required them to sit every player in their lineup, sit out every player in their lineup, goaltenders included, for one period for the remainder of their playoff series with the Barrie Colts. I cannot for the life of me understand that. And frankly, I don't believe it. I didn't believe it when it was reported last night. We were just heading into our dinner together as a team, and I saw this reported by one of the fellows who covers the Ice Dogs in Niagara. And I said to him, I said, "You're about 6 hours early with this April Fool's joke." He says it's not a joke. And in fact, the Ice Dogs did not start their starting goaltender last night, and they did rotate players oddly through their lineup. So I've never heard, in all my years, I've never heard of anything like this before. Disciplinary measures, absolutely. Suspensions, team fines, sanctions where draft picks get taken away, owners being barred from the building where they can't go in and participate in any way with the team. But I just, to me, this is damaging to the integrity of the game. You're not allowing a team, no matter what they did off the ice. I mean, fans are going to see a playoff game, and they want to see the best team against the best team that those respective organizations can put on the ice. And to prevent that from happening, I don't know. It just sounded super duper weird to me. And I thought for sure somebody's pulling some wool over our eyes here, but apparently not. And the Ice Dogs would go on to lose that game 7-5 to Barrie. So Barrie leads that series 2-0. All right, let's go back to the phones here on your Talkback Hour. Rob is with us. Good afternoon, Rob.
Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, it's Robbie English.
She wouldn't put the English bit in, so I don't know. I don't know. We're being patriotic. I don't care. I don't mind. I got both passports. I'm happy with either. So a safe travel down there, I believe, and obviously I hope we get the result, a similar result with today that we got on Sunday. But yeah, just hearing that thing about the Niagara thing, that's bizarre. I mean, I didn't
so
see anything
weird.
about a bench clearance, or I mean, it must have been something like you said off the ice. But that is kind of weird that the league would step in for something like that on a disciplinary. I mean, you haven't seen any news on any format, eh?
No, other than I know for certain that the Ice Dogs had a very strange lineup. Their starting goaltender did not play the first period. He came in for periods 2 and 3. They shortened their bench, as you would say, so certain players didn't play periods. It's just utterly bizarre to me. Like, what did you have to do? And it was reported as an off ice incident. What would you have had to do though to have that be the punishment? I've never heard of anything like this before.
For the whole team, exactly. So it's obviously it's an organization disciplinary thing. Oh God, I can't speak today. Yeah, it must be an organizational thing. It can't be individual team players, obviously, because it would be individual suspensions, etc. But yeah, absolutely bizarre. But anyway, enough about them guys. They're too close to America for my liking. So yeah, have fun tonight. Make sure they look after you. I'm sure you're not going to have any issues with the American fans, because I think most of America loves us just as much as we do at the moment. So have fun, safe travels. Hope to not speak to you Friday, but if we do, speak to you Friday, buddy.
All right, Robbie, good to hear from you this afternoon. Thanks for that. Rob is one of our regular callers on Rangers Talk, which is what we do after every Rangers home game. Take your calls, talk about the game, talk about junior hockey. And yes, there will be a game in Kitchener on Friday night if the Rangers do not win tonight and Thursday here in Flint. Kitchener has looked great in this series, and like Robbie, I'm hoping that greatness continues as we take the ice against the Firebirds tonight, 6:30 pregame right here on 570 News Radio. Our Talkback Hour is not yet done. We want to hear from you. You get to start the conversation with a phone call to us here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just thinking on what I was sharing before that break in talking to Robbie about junior hockey and just the bizarre, like utterly bizarre, alleged disciplinary measures against the Niagara Ice Dogs last night. They have a playoff game versus Barrie, and they are required, because of discipline, to sit every one of their players, including the goaltender, for at least a period in this playoff series with Barrie. So, like, the starting goaltender doesn't play period number 1. He comes in for periods 2 and 3. I've just never heard of anything like that before. I thought it very, very odd, but they insist to me, those covering the Niagara Ice Dogs, that this is not only true, but it's the way the bench was run in that game last night. I also received, first thing this morning, I was just about to go on the air, and Hans Roach, who's a city councilor right now in Waterloo, sent out a media release announcing his candidacy for member of parliament in this upcoming federal election. And Hans's media release reads as follows, and I quote, "I'm running because Waterloo's voice is not being heard in Ottawa as loudly as it should be. Our incumbent MP has prioritized party directives, raising taxes and sidestepping ethics issues over the needs of our riding. I'm not running as a liberal or a conservative. I'm running for Waterloo. I'm not red. I'm not blue. I'm here for the people of Waterloo," says current city councilor Hans Roach as he announces his candidacy as an independent member of parliament for Waterloo. I thought this was April Fool's shenanigans as well, but Hans has assured me directly that it's not. He very much is running as an independent candidate in this federal election. So I'll take him at his word, just like I'm taking my friends in Niagara at their word that was the bizarre, utterly bizarre disciplinary measure handed out to the Niagara Ice Dogs last night. The one thing I don't know yet from Councillor Roach is if he's resigning his council seat and then running in the federal election and going back to his council seat through a by-election. Having spoken to Hans Roach about this issue before, I don't think he has any intentions of resigning his seat. He disagrees with my position on that. You know how I feel about it. But anyway, I'll just leave that there. Interesting things on this April the 1st that people insist to me are not April Fool's pranks. Let's get back to our phone lines on this Talkback Hour. Ernie is with us. Good afternoon, Ernie.
Hey, Mikey. First thing, go Rangers.
Go Rangers. Let's do it.
Yes, and the second thing, I'm gonna answer just for the record here, Mike. I want to make sure that it's on the air. So this is recording. I'm sticking up for you. Okay, so this is the 1 point you're gonna get from me for at this point, anyway. But
wow, thank you. Okay.
So when they're asking you what would you rather do, I'm like, give Mike a break. He's got to listen to jackwagons like us all day long with the madness of the world. Hockey's his outlet. You get to broadcast like junior hockey. You know what? For putting up with us, Mike, you deserve that chance to be able to do both things. No criticism. Go watch your hockey. Enjoy your show. You do a good job most of the time. I'll let you know when you don't. But Mike, thanks for that, and that's what I wanted to say. And have the Sam Adams on me. Well, not on me. This is the point you get. You still have to pay for that Sam Adams.
All right, Ernie, I appreciate it. Thank you. Good to hear from you today. On that note, so let me just take that half a step further, what Ernie just said, have a Sam Adams on me. And also, again, go back to where I am, which is on the other side of the border in the U.S. And I had friends saying, hey, when you're going to cross that border, you should reach out to this person or that person to make sure everybody knows where you're going. Everything's going to be fine. It's been nothing but normal. Like it's like every other trip coming down. And the folks here in Flint have been nothing but kind to us since our arrival. So, I mean, that could change if we wear out our welcome in 3 days. I don't know, but I'm actually hoping if I can get off my derriere and go do it. And I think I will, just for you. Okay. Just for you. But I'm going to go talk to some folks here and find out the general sentiment towards Canadians, because I think when we're as engaged and invested in things as we are on this show, it tends to be magnified a little bit. I think everyday Americans feel just fine about us, just like everyday Canadians, I think, feel just fine about Americans. It's the administration right now that we're struggling with. To the point, though, on the Sam Adams and being here in the United States, again, everything's been great. And I had a reminder last evening when Paul Fixter, my broadcast partner on Rangers games, found a little pub around the corner from the hotel called Churchill's, as in Winston Churchill. We had a terrific time just sitting down, having a couple of bevies and talking about hockey and stuff. And I'll tell you what, I was reminded how much we pay in various taxes back home, because I could order a 16-ounce draft of beer, and I tried it. It was a Founders all-day IPA, nice little session IPA last night. Anyway, 16 ounces for $4.50. I don't care what your exchange rate is. $4.50 for 16 ounces is a much different deal here than it is back home. So dare I say, God bless Marika and their 16-ounce $4.50 ways. It's your Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. Well, less tax down here on that alcohol. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Coming up on 1 o'clock, your update in the 570 News Center. And then off to Now You Know with Rob Snow, carrying you through until 3 this afternoon. But our time, not yet done. Let's get back to the phones on our Talkback Hour. Adam is with us. Good afternoon, Adam.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hi. I just wanted to talk about Hans Roach and his federal candidacy.
Sure.
I know your opinion, and I agree with it on running while still in office. But I think with Roach's case, it's not going to matter much, because none of us can get a hold of him, or he won't answer any of our emails or phone calls or anything on community safety. So I don't think it's going to matter whether he steps down or not, to be honest.
What issues have you been having?
We've been having safety issues around the public school on Glen Forest Boulevard.
Oh, this is with the fast drivers, isn't it? I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, we've got people doing 70 down there in a 30, blowing through crosswalks, and the lack of snow removal this winter caused some extremely unsafe conditions there as well. And he hasn't provided an ability for the local voices to be heard. I don't know how he expects to be able to perform on a federal level.
Adam, I appreciate the call, and I'm sorry to hear about the issues. I remember talking about that speeding concern on Glen Forest, and if you know Glen Forest, I mean, it's ripe for that kind of behavior. And drivers, you really got to be better. My goodness, I know it's a straight cut through a neighborhood, getting you out to Weber Street, for example, and you want to get there in a hurry, but you really do need to check yourself and consider the neighborhood that you're driving through, the schools, the children that are in that neighborhood, and absolutely slow down. It's really too bad, though, when somebody expresses that frustration with their municipal councillor. Hans Roach has said he's running for Waterloo because he doesn't think its voice has been heard in Ottawa. Adam says his voice isn't being heard in Waterloo right now. So he doesn't think that the voice will be carried to Ottawa through this same councillor either. Interestingly, along those lines of running for another level of office without resigning your existing seat, same situation right now in Mississauga. And what makes that even more interesting is the councillor who has stepped away from her duties as councillor to run in the federal election had said previously she believed in resigning and would resign. And now that she's entered the federal election, she is not resigning. So she's gone back on her own word, having said that she would resign, which is what I think you should do. But that's a whole other conversation that we've had before, and we are out of time for today. So I invite you to join me again tonight alongside Paul Fixter at the Dort Federal Event Center here in Flint. Rangers Firebirds Game 3. Your Harris Law pregame show is getting underway at 6:30. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.